welcome into this week's episode of The Locker Room. I'm your host, Cade Crenshaw, joined this week by Will Heffernan. Will, how are you?
I'm doing great, Cade. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about you and where you're from.
All right, yeah, so I'm a senior. I'm a computer science major, and I'm from Wilton, Connecticut.
Here on The Locker Room. It's going to be an exciting show, folks. Remember, last week we talked AFC football. This week we're flipping the script, talking about the NFC. Now, we have week one of the NFL schedule behind us now with so many question marks about so many teams. We just thought the preseason gave us enough to talk about. Boy, oh boy, did week one give us plenty of discussion points. Let's start here in the NFC East, where really from year to year, it seems like 9-7 is enough to get you a division title. You obviously have the Dallas Cowboys. Let's start there. They make a head coaching change and bring in Mike McCarthy to replace Jason Garrett. Now, with all the talent that the Cowboys have, you have Dak Prescott, you have Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, a decent defense. Is Mike McCarthy the missing piece for the Cowboys?
We shall see. Obviously, disappointing start in the first week, dropping that week one game. Don't think it's what people expected coming in. But I definitely think he very well could be. They've definitely got the pieces there with Dak, Zeke, great wide receiving core with Amari Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb looked really good. So it'll be interesting to see how they do going forward. Obviously, the division is wide open. As you said, 9-7 generally tends to do it. So it'll be interesting to see how they do going forward.
You look back last year and two teams that really had opposite years, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington football team. Now for Washington, they've hired their new head coach as well in former Carolina Panther Ron Rivera, and they took on each other last week. And what was a surprising result for me? Washington got the win, 27-17, but Washington's defense, 8 sacks last week. An incredible performance from them. What can we expect from Washington this year?
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting watching them going forward. Their defense clearly baffled the Eagles towards the end of the game, all those sacks. I just don't know if their offense can get it done. I'm not sure if they have enough firepower, but obviously the division's wide open. They're at the top of the division right now. I don't think anybody saw that coming. So I think they have a very good shot going forward.
You know, I think the biggest question mark for the Washington football team is definitely the question mark surrounding Dwayne Haskins. Is Haskins the quarterback they need in terms of a franchise player? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, another young player they have, Terry McLaurin, who has been a tremendous addition for them, a late-round steal in last year's draft. Maybe he can avoid that sophomore slump. And we mentioned the Eagles, too. Carson Wentz, he's either really, really healthy and playing really, really well, or he's banged up and on the bench. Well, we saw last week he was healthy, but he sure was on the ground an awful lot. And that offensive line may cause some big, big problems for the Eagles.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you said 8 sacks, forced him to make some really dumb decisions. I think he had like 2 interceptions towards the end of that game. But they jumped out to a really big lead to start it off. So I think that they definitely have some stuff to be excited about, but it'll be interesting to see going forward whether that line can keep things short up and whether they can stay healthy because, they've got so many injuries.
Finally, staying in the NFC East, we look at the last team, the New York Giants. They have a new head coach as well, as they brought in former Bill Belichick wide receiver coach Joe Judge to lead this new charged New York Giant team. They have Daniel Jones, hoping to have a better sophomore year than he did his rookie year, and obviously they still have Saquon Barkley. But we saw on Monday Night Football them take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Saquon Barkley, one of the best backs in the league because of their offensive line and a choice of play calling, held to just 6 yards against Pittsburgh. What do you take away from that loss? Is it more on Pittsburgh's defense and the physicality they play, or should we really be worried about the offensive season that the Giants may have?
Yeah, obviously Pittsburgh's got a great defense. I think you can attribute it a little bit to that, but 6 yards for a running back of that caliber is just not acceptable for whoever you're playing. So I think you really got to put some blame on the offensive line there, maybe some in the play calling, and it'll be interesting to see how their offense does going forward. I know that Daniel Jones had that one great drive going down the field, made a dumb decision, threw an interception. So I'm not super enthusiastic about the New York Giants hopes.
It's going to be an exciting season overall for the NFC East. You got 3 brand new head coaches, a lot of new pieces thrown here and there. So we'll kind of see. Maybe is 9-7 still enough to win that NFC East crown? Now, staying up obviously in the NFC East, but let's go up north. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers, one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Aaron Rodgers. We saw possibly his successor drafted in the first round this year in Jordan Love. Maybe that put a little bit of extra pressure on Aaron Rodgers, but he delivered this past Sunday against the Vikings. 43 points for the Packers, not to mention 4 touchdown passes for Aaron Rodgers. Going into this season, do you have many question marks surrounding this Packers team?
I think that the Packers are one of the most complete teams in the NFL this season. Aaron Rodgers obviously played a great game. I think, you might be right. He might have that fire lit under him now that they drafted what we assume to be his successor, but they were fully in control of that game. I know that Minnesota scored a bunch of points towards the end, but they won by 9 and were basically in control for the entire way. So I think that they're going to have a great season.
Now, the team they took down, cross-division rival, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Minnesota Vikings, they don't have a lot of the same faces they had last year, much like the Packers do. No more Stephon Diggs, no more Everson Griffin, no more Trey Waynes. The list goes on and on from this Vikings team that we've really thought were NFC contenders in the last few years. All of those players are all in different spots. Now, for the Vikings, obviously, they opened the season with that loss to the Packers. Is there enough talent on this Vikings team to replace what they lost?
I think there definitely is. Got Dalvin Cook at running back. I think that there's definitely enough talent. Obviously, week 1 result wasn't what they wanted, but they put up a bunch of points against a very, very good team. So I think that I'm not going to write them out. I think that they've got a lot of hope going forward.
The final 2 teams in the NFC North, you look at the Detroit Lions. Things haven't been great under Matt Patricia, but could they be getting better? I think the big key there is going to be Matthew Stafford's health. That's the key year in and year out for the Detroit Lions. If Matthew Stafford's healthy, the Lions are not a great team, but they are a decent team. Stafford, I think, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, a seasoned vet. When he's healthy, he makes them a better team. But is he enough to get them better than the 3 wins they had last year?
I do really like Matthew Stafford. I think he's a great quarterback. Not sure if they have enough weapons around him to get them there. It'll be interesting to see, DeAndre Swift going forward. He had that key drop towards the end of that game. Obviously not how you want to start your NFL career. I really do like Matthew Stafford. Not sure if he's enough to pull them more than they got last year.
It's obviously an interesting season as well for the Chicago Bears. You look back, I think Bears fans are still upset that their front office on draft night passed on both Deshaun Watson, not to mention the hottest quarterback in the league right now, Patrick Mahomes, just to draft Mitchell Trubisky at number 2 overall. They went 8-8 last year. Obviously, Trubisky's still there. Not only that, but they also signed Nick Foles in the offseason too. Looking at this Bears team, can they be better than 8-8?
I think it's definitely possible for them. They got the win in week 1, but I just didn't really like what I saw. I know that Trubisky played well towards the end of the game, wasn't great at the start of the game. Not the biggest Trubisky fan. I don't think they're gonna have a great season.
Let's move on to the NFC South. Well, there's a lot of new faces in a lot of different places. I think the biggest one of them all is obviously Tom Brady, the new starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As weird as that sounds to say, he's now in Tampa Bay with a host of other players, including Rob Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette. If we think back to 2016, 2017, this is a all-star lineup. This is the team you would automatically pick to win the Super Bowl. But they lost that first game of the year last week to the New Orleans Saints. Now, obviously, the Saints, they still have Drew Brees. They still have Alvin Kamara. Now, you look at this NFC South, I think it's pretty much wide open. Not only that, but the Falcons, they added Todd Gurley, and not to mention more new faces. You look at the Carolina Panthers bringing in brand new head coach Matt Rule from Baylor and Teddy Bridgewater in at quarterback over from New Orleans. Give me your rundown here on this NFC South that has so many crazy twists and turns. It's honestly like a crazy movie.
Yeah, the NFC South was the division I was most excited to see pan out when the season started. Obviously, huge changes with the Bucs organization, adding Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. I really felt like they had the offensive pieces to make a deep run in the playoffs. Obviously, week 1 result wasn't exactly what people were expecting, but the Saints really have a great all-around team. With the Buccaneers, it'll be interesting to see going forward. Tom Brady, didn't look the same as he's always been. Gronkowski, looked a little bit old. But I think that Brady's still got that fire in him. I think that he's going to bounce back, and I never count him out. So I'm still pretty high on the Bucs. The Falcons lost to the Seahawks week 1, but their offense looked amazing. Matt Ryan passed for, I think, 450 yards. They had 3 receivers who had over 100 yards receiving, and they added Todd Gurley. So I think that they're going to be kind of a dark horse candidate in that division.
It's going to be an interesting season for this NFC South, really division as a whole. Because you look at the Buccaneers, Tom Brady, let's be honest, he wasn't at his best last year. We've always said that Tom Brady can play ageless, it seems like. But last year, the wheels kind of came off the bus, and it showed a little bit. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me from Tom Brady last year, and his last year, obviously, with the Patriots. Now the Buccaneers and Bruce Arians, will he throw the 30-plus interceptions like Jameis Winston did last year for the Bucs? No. Do I think he's going to throw 30-plus touchdowns like Jameis Winston did last year? I really don't think so either. You look at the opening week, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Right now, he's on pace, right? He's on pace so far with obviously 15 regular season games. Now, we'll see how that goes, obviously, down the stretch. Now, wrapping up here on this week's edition of The Locker Room, let's talk about the NFC West. And I think the biggest offseason move we thought was going to be Jamal Adams being traded to the Seahawks. No. We saw DeAndre Hopkins become an Arizona Cardinal and yet another weapon for Kyler Murray. Give me your rundown of both the Seahawks, as they have an all-star player in Russell Wilson. I think he's one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the league right now, right there with Patrick Mahomes. Now, he also has a defensive presence to back him up a little bit in Seattle and Jamal Adams. Where on the other side, you look at Arizona, not a great defense, but tons of offensive weapons.
Yeah, I agree. NFC West, honestly, the most interesting division right now for me. I think it's completely wide open as to who's going to emerge on top of that. The Rams picked up a win week 1 against a very good Cowboys team, so they'll be one to watch. The Cardinals played the 49ers. That result didn't quite turn out the way I thought it was going to. The Niners, obviously, NFC champions last year, didn't quite follow it back up. It'll be interesting to see. I know that Kittle went down, was a little hobbled, so it'll be interesting to see how he fares and whether he stays healthy. But really great offensive presence out of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. It was just incredible to watch just how fast Kyler Murray looked out on the field, just running away from defenders like they were not even moving. But the Seahawks, honestly, for me, I think that they're the best team in that division. Offense looked amazing. They added Jamal Adams over the offseason, so now their defense is going to be just that much better. And I think that they're going to be one of the top 2 teams in the NFC this year.
You know, you mentioned the San Francisco 49ers. They're obviously last year's NFC champions. And now the question, though, is will they have a Super Bowl hangover? We've seen that happen before, and obviously you mentioned George Kittle's injury. Goes down in Sunday's game with a little bit of a knee problem. Did not catch a pass in the second half. Did play, but did not catch a pass. He's not expected to practice this week, although they still expect him to go on Sunday, according to the latest reports. Now, what's going to be interesting for me about this whole scheme is the Rams, too. You know, the Rams were the hottest team in football, right? Everybody wanted their offense. Everybody wanted a young coach, young offensive, firepower-minded coach like Sean McVay, a few years ago when they were in the Super Bowl. But now, what do we have in the Rams, right? We have your average 8-9 win team, right? That you're not really considering a true contender. They have talent on the defensive side. They've got Aaron Donald up front, Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. Offensively, though, you look back to when they were so good, you had a prime-time Todd Gurley, pre-knee injury, and that's what really set them apart. That was an MVP season for Gurley. Now, your best running backs are Malcolm Brown, a rookie in Cam Akers, and a mediocre Jared Goff at quarterback. There's so many question marks for me right now about this Rams team that they're really, I would say, 4th in this division right now, which is incredible to think for where they once were just 2-3 years ago. It's going to be an exciting season overall for the NFC and for the NFL as a whole as we head into week 2 this weekend. Well, I appreciate you joining me this week on The Locker Room. Had some great conversation, folks. We invite you back to join us next week for another fun week of conversation. For Will Heffernan, I'm Cade Crenshaw. You've been watching The Locker Room, and we'll see you next week.